Hello and welcome to another episode of the All Things Considered CX podcast. I'm your host, Bob Azman, and we're back for a new year and a new series of podcasts. And as I've done every year for a number of years, I invite experts in different fields, specifically surrounding professional development, to join me for the podcast because I know many of you use the month of January to make New Year's resolutions that you're going to change jobs or improve your profiles or your brands and so forth. And we have got one of the best in this area of professional development joining us today, Carol Kaemmerer. And Carol, it's great to have you back. Some of you may know this, but Carol joins me on an annual basis. I don't know why I don't have her more frequently, but it's something about January that I think about Carol to join and talk about personal brand and a lot of other topics. And so, Carol, welcome, and would love if you would introduce yourself to our listeners.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. I'm Carol Kaemmerer. I am the author of this fabulous book, LinkedIn for the Savvy Executive: Promote Your Brand with Authenticity, Tact, and Power. It was named by Book Authority as one of the best LinkedIn books of all time. And it is a bestseller. It's available on my website and Amazon. I am also a professional speaker, and I work with people and companies on their brands online on LinkedIn. And the reason that I do that is that LinkedIn is the most powerful of professional platforms. And if you're not there in power, you're doing yourself a disservice. So that's who I am, and I am delighted to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Carol. Let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
Whew, 2024 is behind us. 2025
It is.
is upon us as we tape this podcast. What, from your perspective, do you see as the changes in the business marketplace, so to speak?
Okay. Well, I studied up. It is interesting. The job market is cooling. Companies are not hiring at the same rate as they were hiring before. And one of the things that people have said is it's the great stay. That is, people are staying in their jobs this year, and it's not because they love them. Now, some of us do, of course, but Gallup just recently published a year in review, and one of the things that they noted was that the rate of employee dissatisfaction is the highest it's been in the last 15 years. Over 50% of people are saying that they are actively looking for a job while in their current position. And what we have perceived, in seeing our friends look for jobs, is it's not happening. And so there are two great watchwords for this season. One of them is the big stay, and the other is the great detachment, because people are, some of them, discontent, and they are ready to move on. They're not finding the right environment for themselves in their current position, and they are not being able to move. So it takes a great personal brand to cut through that and to make yourself stand out. Not just every person who is looking for a job is going to find one.
Mm-hmm. And Carol, I imagine, I've seen the latest trends of CEOs saying, okay, everybody comes back into the office now. We're eliminating remote work. That can't be a positive for the two areas you just talked about in terms of detachment and staying.
Right. That is indeed one of those forces. that is creating that sense of discontent and detachment.
Hmm. So, Carol, when that happens to an individual, and within the customer experience profession, um, we see a lot of transition within customer experience.
Mhm.
Um, Individuals that get tired of trying to sell customer experience to an organization that isn't listening.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, customer experience professionals are treated like travel expense. So it's, you can stop travel so you eliminate CX positions because they're an expense when a company, it just is insane what we see sometimes. You go on LinkedIn, and I monitor jobs on LinkedIn related to the customer experience profession, and
Yes.
to see what the trends are. And you see jobs posted for half an hour, and there's over 100 applicants already for that
Yeah.
for that job. And so when this happens to individuals, I would imagine one of the challenges is there might be some sort of panic that sets in. I think you and I both have experienced situations like that in our organizations, but there's a panic that sets in, and we say, "Oh my gosh, I have to update my LinkedIn profile." Am I close to the scenario there from your experience?
Oh, yes. So there is another trend that happens. So some people, yes, they know that they should update, and they
Hmm.
should. But there are a lot of people who are saying, well, I'm different. People love me in my job. Nobody can do my job the way that I can. I am safe. And they don't update their profile. And the reason is they think that it's going to jinx them. It's going to send the message that they're ready to leave. Well, sorry, but it's important for us to take this month to begin to think about what do we need to do, and to start doing it, because I know from my experience in working with individuals, senior level people for the last 12 years or so, that if you go through an involuntary separation, it's a it's a kick in the gut.
Mm.
It's one that you don't recover from quickly. And it takes such a toll on your confidence level, your ability to express who you are and what value you add. So it's so much easier to take a look at your profile and begin to update it while you're employed, while everything is going out, same. Because
Mhm.
when you are in transition is the worst time to update your profile.
Mhm. And especially just because of the emotional side of it, right?
Yes,
It's just
yes,
you're trying to deal with that involuntary separation, and
yeah,
and then say I've got to update my LinkedIn profile with a level of confidence. So I love this theme that we're talking about, Carol, around prepare
yes.
now. If you made that New Year's resolution, it's time to prepare. So what do I do as a professional? What are some things that and techniques that you found
Yeah.
to suggest how I go about this?
Okay, let's see. I would say um, to start understanding about some of the principles of LinkedIn. The first principle that I want to make sure that everybody hears is that less is never more on LinkedIn, only more is more. Now, in decorating, less is often more. In writing text that is to be printed, less on the page is often more. But on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a search engine. And if you write 2 sentences about yourself in the About section, and my clients have 2,600 characters, which is 5 paragraphs about themselves, who is going to capture the attention of the LinkedIn algorithm? The person who writes more, because they are using their keywords more often. And LinkedIn is eating keywords for breakfast. It's important. And so when I approach writing a LinkedIn profile, I make sure that I'm writing to the margins. So the margins are LinkedIn's limits, and you can just Google them and find out what they are. The headline is 220 characters. The about section is 2,600. And for each of your positions, you have 2,000 to write. So if you're talking about a position that's long ago and far away, don't write 2,000 characters. But for the ones that are close in time, your current position and your most recent position before that, make sure that you are writing about your accomplishments rather than just your responsibilities. We want to know, how did you move the needle for your company? How did you make a difference? That's what will help you stand out. So that's number one. Just make sure that you don't get trapped by the naysayers who say, well, people don't spend a lot of time looking at your profile. Well, if there's nothing there, of course they don't.
Right.
But the other thing to know is that every LinkedIn profile has two audiences. The first audience is people, and people like stories, they like context, they like to feel that they know you a little bit, having read your profile. The second audience is bots, LinkedIn's bots, and they are looking for your keywords. They're actually doing a keyword count. How many times does this keyword show up in your profile? And that is one of the primary drivers for how do you show up in the LinkedIn search under that keyword. So the more times you use your keywords in natural language, not lists, natural language, the more powerful your profile will be. And, that's something that most people don't understand. And I want to make sure that your audience has the right stuff when they
Right.
bring their experience to making themselves shine on LinkedIn. Um, what,
Before you go on to the next tip,
yeah,
a couple of questions for you is, should you have AI write your paragraphs?
if you are very good at asking AI questions and giving it directions, I think it's lovely to have AI be your helper because, oh my gosh, we have AI helping us on a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
most of us. Um, and there's no reason that it can't help. Um, whether you let it do the first draft or just, correct what you've done. But I always start with introspection. So here are my three signature questions that I start every executive um, opportunity to work with them on their profile. It is, what are the three things you want to be known for? Now, that sounds simple, and it's simple to remember, but it's not easy because the first time somebody asked me that, it was years ago. I wanted to be known for six because I was special. Okay,
Right, of course.
that doesn't work. People are hardwired to remember things in three. That's why preachers and teachers and writers and authors and orators have used the rule of three for all time to make their points stick. And it doesn't have to be particularly eloquent. These particular ones, the examples I'm going to give you are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Hmm.
I came, I saw, I conquered. Or think of the last sermon you heard at church. Didn't it have 3 points? Um, when we have 3 points, three things that we are impressing on our audience that we want them to remember, they will. 6 things, even 4 things, it's not happening. So that thought process, if you have really warmed up your AI and your AI knows you well, asking that question and going back and forth, what are the 3 things that I seem to want to be known for?
Right.
If you've been working with your AI, it will be very helpful.
Mhm.
What are your differentiators? That's my second question.
Mm.
Um, it's so important to know how you are different from the other people who have the same title. Um, everybody is different than the next person.
Mhm.
And putting that backstory into your about section about your differentiators is important. And then the third question is, what are my keywords? Now,
Mm.
I often get asked, what are the key words for my industry? Well, I don't care what the keywords are for your industry. You should know what the keywords are for your industry, but what are the keywords for your industry and for you?
Mm.
You know, I'm not gonna do research on which words should pop up. If we're using somebody's should list instead of your real list, we will find that we attract the wrong audience. When we are authentic and we channel who we are, how we work, and what we're looking for, we will attract those people who resonate with that.
Mm. That makes complete sense. I just am curious in your experiences. Like you said, it sounds simple, but it's not easy.
Yes.
It must take people. I mean, I've gone through this process with you. It's not easy. You really have
No.
to have some introspection to achieve that. But boy,
Yes.
when you get there,
Yeah.
it's a
It's
completely different approach.
Yes. So here is another formula. Once you
Mhm.
figure out your 3 things you want to be known for, you want to put them in your headline, you want to
Mm.
put them in your about section. We got 5 paragraphs. Surely you could take 3 and make a subhead, and talk about each one of those to nail that point. And then the skills. One of the things that LinkedIn has changed in the last year is that you have to have the the first 3 skills should be your top 3 skills.
Mm.
So they've made it possible for us to move our skills up and down and around. And
Okay.
so that is, a meaningful change that they've made, maybe in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, so again, it's the rule of 3. You're going to put it in your headline, in your about section, and in your
Mm.
skills section as the top 3 skills. One skill for each of those things that you want to be known for.
Mhm. So, Carol, when the um, the HR systems, accept applications, uh, sometimes they'll say, fill this out with your resume or fill it out with your LinkedIn profile. Uh, do you have any recommendations there on which is better, more advantageous, or is it a toss-up?
So I kind of think, and especially if you worked with me,
And
you
updated
would
your
be,
profile, right?
yeah, yeah, you would do better on your profile. because your profile can be so much more personal. Um, your resume is a very formulaic document, and you don't see a lot of personal I statements, this is who I am. You'll see a summary, maybe two sentences, and a group of skills. It
Mhm.
doesn't make you fall in love with that person. If you write your about section the way that I teach to write your about section, or the way that I do it for my executive clients, it actually is a love letter to your ideal audience, whether that be your customers or future employers or whoever. Um, it is a document. The LinkedIn profile is a document where we can write so much more about ourselves and really tell our story in a way that a chronological account alone doesn't do.
Mhm. And of course, a potential employer can see your posts, your articles, whatever additional things that activities that you've had beyond your job and on how you're interacting in LinkedIn too.
Yes. Well, and if you send your resume and they're really interested, the first thing they're going to do is check you out
Go to
on LinkedIn.
right.
So,
Right.
you know, that's just an interesting thing. And also, so many have the applicant tracking system, and the applicant
Mhm.
tracking system works on keywords too. So if you've used your
Mhm.
LinkedIn and it's all tricked out, as I am suggesting, with writing to the margin and using your keywords often, you will probably rank higher on that applicant tracking system if they track your LinkedIn profile as opposed to just your resume.
Mhm. And Carol, how often should you be toying with your LinkedIn profile? And of course, I know if you get a new position, you want to add that in and so forth. But I'm saying at the core, if you've used your process properly, I'm imagining you don't need to do a lot of updating to it, or am I wrong there?
Okay, so here are the things that I would update. If you have your profile all optimized, when you have a specific thing that happens, like you get a certification because you've been taking a
Mm,
course and you get a certification, make sure you post it to your featured section.
mm,
And so that's an update, but it's not a major overhaul. Um,
mhm,
make sure also that you are posting from time to time, because when people are looking for people who are connected in their industry, one of the ways that they can tell you're connected in the industry is that you're posting and you're in community with people. People are commenting on your material because you've commented on theirs.
mm,
And, you know, that's a wonderful way to show that you are actively engaged in your area of expertise.
mhm. More great advice. Listeners, we're talking to Carol Kaemmerer, and she's a LinkedIn um, expert is falling short of the of her extensive experience in guiding people through LinkedIn and updating their profile as well as their personal brand. And our time always goes so fast. I'm always amazed at how fast it goes. Carol, what are some additional or final thoughts you have of guidance to our listeners in building their personal brand? And then I also want to talk before we adjourn with upcoming series that you have
Oh,
planned
yeah.
that some of our listeners can join. So any final thoughts on advice for our listeners?
So I want to just repeat something that I said, and that is when you are authentic on LinkedIn, when you are transparent, when you share who you are, how you work, what your principles are, what your passion is, what your purpose is, those things connect with the heart. And when someone loves you from the beginning, you're much more likely to cut through the noise of all the other applicants. So that concept of really spending time telling who you are, not approaching LinkedIn like a fill in the blank test, but like an essay test that it is, you
Mm.
know, where you plan what you're going to say and you say it with passion. That will attract and create that sense of memorability. You want to be memorable.
That's outstanding advice for our listeners. And trust me, listeners, um, Carol is very successful in what she does, and so she knows, and you should listen to her closely. Carol, if obviously you're on LinkedIn, if they want to learn more, you've got a great book out there that's very popular, but you also have a series coming up that our listeners might be interested
Yes.
in.
Yes. Okay. So it's called LinkedIn Learners Lab. And um, it is just a fabulous group course. It is kind of a middle of the road offering. I do high end done for you profiles, and I have an online course. And then last year I created this, it's LinkedIn Leaders Lab. I created this LinkedIn Leaders Lab, and it is a group process. It takes 6 weeks. We meet for an hour every week, and in between, you work on the item of the day, you know, the item of the week. And so it's a chunk down process so you don't have to feel overwhelmed. We just go step by step by step. And people love the process of having others to share, you know, how does this sound? Well, if we try it this way, if we try it that way, it's great. So it will be coming up in February, and it's a great opportunity to get world-class teaching and experience about LinkedIn to guide your work. It's a whole different thing for me, and I
Mhm.
have really enjoyed it, and so have my learners.
Sounds like a great investment of time to do that. So, listeners, reach out to Carol, check her out on LinkedIn, and it's time. The time is now. I think I just read something that January 15th is resolution something day, where resolution you
Yeah, they're in the can by the end.
right, the resolution fail day or something like
Yeah,
that. So to our listeners, don't let that happen to you. Take Carol up on her suggestions and succeed in your resolutions to update your profile, get a new position, do better in your current position, whatever it might be. Build that personal brand. Carol, thanks so much for joining us today.
my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And listeners, this has been another episode of the All Things Considered CX podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed it, share it with your networks and stay tuned for another upcoming episode.